Chapter 8. Ledger. I didn't park in the garage when I got home last night. Diem likes to wake up and look out her window in the mornings to make sure I'm home, and when I leave my truck in the garage, Grace says it makes Diem sad. I've lived across the street from them since Diem was 8 months old, but if I don't count the years I moved out of this house and lived in Denver, I've technically been in this house my entire life. My parents haven't lived here in several years, even though they're both passed out in the guest room right now. They bought the RV when my father retired, and they travel the country now. I bought the house from them when I moved back, and they loaded up and left. I figured it would last a year at the most, but it's been over 4 years now, and they aren't showing any signs of slowing down. I just wish they'd warn me before they show up. Maybe I should download a GPS app to their phone so I'll have some kind of warning in the future. Not that I don't like their visits. It would just be nice to be able to prepare for them. This is why I'm building a privacy gate at my new house. Eventually. It's slow going because Roman and I are doing a lot of the work ourselves. Every Sunday from sunup until sundown, I drive up to Cheshire Ridge with Roman and we work on it. I contract out for the more difficult stuff, but we've completed a good chunk of the build ourselves. After 2 years of Sundays, the house is finally starting to come together. I'm maybe 6 months from moving in. Where are you going? I spin around when I reach the garage door. My father is standing outside the guest bedroom. He's in his underwear. Diem has T-ball. You guys wanna come? Nope. Too hungover for kids today, and we really need to get back on the road. You're already leaving? We'll be back in a few weeks. My father gives me a hug. Your mother is still asleep, but I'll tell her you said bye. Maybe give me a heads up before the next visit and I'll take off work. My father shakes his head. Nah, we like seeing the surprise on your face when we show up unannounced. He heads into the bathroom and closes the door. I walk through the garage and toward Patrick and Grace's house across the street. I'm hoping Diem isn't in a talkative mood because my concentration is going to be shit today. All I can think about is the girl from last night and how much I want to see her again. I wonder if it would be weird if I left a note on her door? I knock on Patrick and Grace's front door and then walk in. We're all back and forth at each other's houses so much, at one point we got tired of saying, "It's open." It's always open. Grace is in the kitchen with Diem. Diem is sitting in the center of the table with her legs crossed and a bowl of eggs on her lap. She never sits in chairs. She's always on top of things, like the back of the couch, the kitchen bar, the kitchen table. She's a climber. You're still in your pajamas, D. I take the bowl of eggs from her and point down the hallway. Get dressed, we gotta go. She runs to her room to put on her T-ball uniform. I thought the game was at 10, Grace says. I would have had her ready. It is, but I've got Gatorade duty, so I have to run by the store, and then I have to swing by and pick up Roman. I lean against the counter and grab a tangerine. I peel it open while Grace starts the dishwasher. She blows a piece of hair out of her face. She wants a swing set, she says. One of those ridiculously big ones like the one you used to have in your backyard. Her friend Nyla from school got one, and you know we can't say no. It'll be her 5th birthday. I still have it. You do? Where? It's in the shed in pieces, but I can help Patrick put it back together. Shouldn't be too hard. You think it's still in good shape? Was when I took it apart. I failed to tell her Scotty is the reason I took it apart. I got angry every time I looked at it after he died. I put another piece of tangerine in my mouth and reroute my thoughts. I can't believe she'll be 5. Grace sighs. I know. Unreal. Unfair. Patrick pops into the kitchen and touzles my hair like I'm not almost 30 and 3 inches taller than him. Hey, kid. He reaches around me and grabs one of the tangerines. Did Grace tell you we can't make the game today? I haven't yet, Grace says. She rolls her eyes, her annoyed gaze landing on me. My sister is in the hospital. Elective surgery, she's fine, but we have to drive to her house and feed her cats. What's she getting done this time? Grace waves a hand at her face. Something with her eyes. Who knows? She's 5 years older than me, but looks 10 years younger. Patrick covers Grace's mouth. Stop. You're perfect. Grace laughs and shoves his hand away. I've never seen them fight. Not even when Scotty was a kid. My parents bicker a lot, and it's mostly in fun, but I've never even seen Grace and Patrick bicker in the 20 years I've known them. I want that. Someday. I don't have time for it yet, though. I work too much and feel like I'm slowly running myself into the ground. I need to make a change if I ever want to keep a girl long enough to have what Patrick and Grace have. Ledger. DM yells from her bedroom. Help me. I walk down the hallway to go see what she needs. She's on her knees in her closet, digging around. I can't find my other boot, I need my boot. She's holding one red cowboy boot and rummaging around for the other. Why do you need boots? You need your cleats. I don't want to wear my cleats today. I want to wear my boots. Her cleats are next to her bed, so I grab them. You can't wear boots to play baseball. Here, hop on the bed so I can help you put on your cleats. She stands up and flings the second red boot onto her bed. Found it. She giggles and climbs onto her bed and starts putting on her boots. DM. It's baseball. People don't wear boots to play baseball. I'm wearing boots today. No, you can't. I shut up. I don't have time to argue with her, and I know once she gets to the field and sees all the other kids with their cleats, she'll let me take off her boots. I help her put on the boots and take the cleats with us when I carry her out of the room. Grace meets us at the door and hands DM a juice pouch. Have fun today. She kisses DM on the cheek, and then Grace's eyes go to DM's boots. Don't ask, I say as I open their front door. Bye, Nana. DM says. Patrick is in the kitchen, and when DM fails to tell him goodbye, he stomps dramatically toward us.
What about Nono?
Patrick wanted to go by Papa when DM started talking, but for whatever reason, she called Grace Nana and Patrick Nono, and it was so funny Grace and I enforced it enough that it finally stuck. Bye, Nono, DM says, giggling. We may not get back before you, Grace says. You mind keeping her if we aren't?
I don't know why Grace always asks me. I've never said no.
I'll never say no. Take your time. I'll take her somewhere for lunch. I put DM down when we get outside. McDonald's. She says. I don't want McDonald's, I say as we cross the street toward my truck. McDonald's drive-through. I open the back door to my truck and help her into her booster seat. How about Mexican food? Nope. McDonald's. Chinese? We haven't had Chinese food in a long time. McDonald's. I'll tell you what. If you wear your cleats when we get to the game, we can eat McDonald's. I get her seatbelt buckled. She shakes her head. No, I want to wear my boots. I don't want lunch anyway, I'm full. You'll be hungry by lunchtime. I won't, I ate a dragon. I'm gonna be full forever. Sometimes I worry about how many stories she tells, but she's so convincing I'm more impressed than concerned. I don't know at what age a child should know the difference between a lie and using their imagination, but I'll leave that up to Grace and Patrick. I don't want to stifle my favorite part of her. I pull onto the street. You ate a dragon? A whole dragon? Yeah, but he was a baby dragon, that's how he fit in my stomach. Where'd you find a baby dragon? Walmart. They sell baby dragons at Walmart? She proceeds to tell me all about how baby dragons are sold at Walmart, but you have to have a special coupon, and only kids can eat them. By the time I make it to Roman's, she's explaining how they're cooked. With salt and shampoo, she says. You aren't supposed to eat shampoo. You don't eat it, you use it to cook the dragon. Oh. Silly me. Roman gets in the truck, and he looks about as excited as someone going to a funeral. He hates T-ball days. He's never been a kid person. The only reason he helps me coach is that none of the other parents would do it. And since he works for me, I added it to his schedule. He's the only person I know who gets paid to coach T-ball, but he doesn't seem to feel guilty about it. Hi, Roman, DM says from the backseat in a sing-song voice. I've only had 1 cup of coffee, don't talk to me. Roman is 27, but he and DM have met somewhere in the middle with their love-hate relationship, because they both act 12. DM starts tapping the back of his headrest. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Roman rolls his head until he's looking at me. All this shit you do to help little kids in your spare time isn't going to gain you any points in an afterlife because religion is a social construct created by societies who wanted to regulate their people, which makes heaven a concept. We could be sleeping right now. Wow. I'd hate to see you before coffee. I back out of his driveway. If heaven is conceptual, what is hell? The T-ball field.
Chapter 9. Kenna. I've been to 6 different places trying to find a job, and it isn't even 10 in the morning yet. They've all gone the same. They give me an application. Ask me about my experience. I have to tell them I have none. I have to tell them why. Then they apologize, but not before looking me up and down. I know what they're thinking. It's the same thing my landlord, Ruth, said when she saw me for the first time. Didn't expect you to look like this. People think women who go to prison have a certain look. That we're a certain way. But we're mothers, wives, daughters, humans. And all we want is to just catch one fucking break. Just one. The 7th place I try is a grocery store. It's a little farther from my apartment than I'd like, almost 2.5 miles, but I've exhausted everything else between this store and my apartment. I'm sweating when I enter the store, so I freshen up in the bathroom. I'm washing my hands in the sink when a short woman with silky black hair enters the bathroom. She doesn't go into a stall. She just leans against the wall and closes her eyes. She has a name badge on, Amy. When she opens her eyes, she notices I'm staring at her shoes. She's wearing a pair of moccasins with white and red beads in the shape of a circle on top of them. You like? She asks, lifting her foot and tilting it from one side to the other. Yeah. They're beautiful. My grandmother makes them. We're supposed to wear sneakers here, but the general manager has never said anything about my shoes. I think he's scared of me. I look down at my muddy sneakers. I recoil at the sight of them. I didn't realize I was walking around with such dirty shoes. I can't apply for a job like this. I take one of them off and start washing it in the sink. I'm hiding, the woman says. I don't normally hang out in bathrooms, but there's an old lady in the store who always complains about everything, and I'm honestly just not in the mood for her bullshit today. I have a 2-year-old and she didn't sleep all night and I really wanted to call in sick today, but I'm the shift manager, and shift managers don't call in sick. We show up and hide in bathrooms. She grins. Exactly. I switch shoes and start washing the other one. I have a lump in my throat when I say, "Are you guys hiring?" I'm looking for a job. Yeah, but it's probably not anything you're interested in. She must not see the desperation on my face. What are you hiring for? Grocery bagger. It's not full-time, but we usually leave those spots open for teenagers with special needs. Oh. Well, I don't want to take a job away from anyone. No, it's not that, she says. We just don't have many applicants because of the low hours, but we really are in need of part-time help. It's about 20 hours a week. That won't even pay rent, but if I worked hard enough, I could possibly work my way into a different position. I can do it until someone with special needs applies. I could really use the money. Amy looks me up and down. Why are you so desperate? The pay is shit. I put my shoe back on. I tie my shoe, stalling the inevitable admission. I just got out of prison. I say it fast and confidently, like it doesn't bother me as much as it does. But I'm not. I can do this. I won't let you down and I won't be any trouble. Amy laughs. It's a loud laugh, but when I don't laugh with her, she folds her arms over her chest and tilts her head. Oh, shit. You're serious? I nod. Yeah. But if it's against policy, I totally get it. It's not a big deal. She waves a flippant hand. We don't really have a policy. We aren't a chain, we can hire whoever we want. To be honest, I'm obsessed with Orange as the New Black, so if you'll promise to let me know which parts of the show are bullshit, I'll give you an application. I could cry. Instead, I fake a smile. I've heard so many jokes about that show. I guess I need to watch it. Amy rolls her head. Yes. Yes, yes. Best show, best cast, come with me. I follow her to the customer service desk at the front of the store. She digs around in a drawer and finds an application, then hands it to me along with a pen. If you fill it out while you're here, I can get you in for Monday orientation. I take the application from her, and I want to thank her. I want to hug her, I want to tell her she's changing my life. But I just smile and quietly take my application to a bench by the front door. I fill out my full name but put quotation marks around my middle name, so they'll know to call me Nicole. I can't be wearing a name tag that says Kenna in this town. Someone will recognize it. Then they'll gossip. I get halfway through the first page when I'm interrupted. Hey. My fingers clench the pen tightly when I hear his voice. I slowly lift my head, and Ledger is standing in front of me with a grocery cart full of about a dozen packs of Gatorade. I flip the application over, hoping he didn't already see my name across the top of it. I swallow and attempt to appear to be in a more stable mood than all the moods he witnessed from me yesterday. I gesture toward the Gatorade. Special at the bar tonight? A subtle relief seems to wash over him, like he was expecting me to tell him to fuck off. He taps one of the packs of Gatorade. T-ball coach. I look away from him, because for some reason that answer makes me uneasy. He doesn't look like a T-ball coach. Those lucky mothers. Oh, no. He's a T-ball coach. Does he have a kid? A kid and a wife? Did I almost sleep with a married T-ball coach? I tap the pen on the back of the clipboard. Are you aren't married, are you? His grin tells me no. He doesn't even need to say it, but he shakes his head and says, single, then motions toward the clipboard on my lap. You applying for a job? Yep. I glance toward the customer service desk, and Amy is eyeing me. I need this job so bad, but I'm afraid this might make it look like I'm going to be distracted by sexy bartenders while I'm on the clock. I look away from her, wondering if Ledger's standing here talking to me is hurting my chances. I flip the clipboard back over, but tilt it so that he isn't able to see my name. I start writing in my address, hoping he walks away. He doesn't. He pushes his cart to the side so a guy can get around him, and then he leans his right shoulder against the wall and says, I was hoping I'd run into you again. I'm not going to do this right now. I'm not going to lead him on when he has no idea who I am. I'm also not going to risk this job by fraternizing with customers. Can you go? I whisper it, but loud enough for him to hear it. He makes a face. Did I do something wrong? No, I just really need to finish this. His jaw tightens, and he pushes off the wall. It's just that you act like you're mad, and I feel kind of bad about last night. ... I'm fine. I look back at the customer service desk, and Amy is still staring. I face Ledger and plead with him. I really need this job. And right now, my potential new boss keeps looking over here, and no offense, but you're covered in tattoos and look like trouble, and I need her to think I'm not going to give her any issues at all. I don't care what happened last night. It was mutual. It was fine. He nods slowly and then grips the handle of his shopping cart. It was fine, he repeats, seemingly offended. For a moment, I feel bad, but I'm not going to lie to him. He put his hand down my jeans, and if we hadn't been interrupted, we probably would have ended up fucking. In his truck. How spectacular could it have been? But he's right, it was more than fine. I can't even look at him without staring at his mouth. He's a good kisser, and it's toying with my head right now because I have so many more important things going on in my life than his mouth. He stands silent for a couple of seconds and then reaches into a sack in his cart. He pulls out a brown bottle. I bought caramel. In case you come back. He tosses the bottle into the cart. Anyway. Good luck. He looks uneasy when he turns and walks out the door. I try to continue filling out the form, but I'm shaking now. I feel like I've got a bomb strapped to me and it ticks down in his presence, getting closer and closer to exploding my secrets all over him. I finish filling out the application, but my handwriting is sloppy because of my trembling hands. When I return to customer service and hand it to Amy, she says, "He your boyfriend?" I play dumb. Who? Ledger Ward. Ward? The bar is called Ward's. He owns the bar? I shake my head, answering Amy's question. No, I hardly know him. Shame. He's a hot commodity around here since he and Leah broke up. She says that like I'm supposed to know who Leah is. I guess in a town this size, most people know most people. I glance back at the door Ledger disappeared through. I'm not in the market for a hot commodity. Just a lukewarm job. Amy laughs and then browses my application for a moment. Did you grow up here? No, I'm from Denver. I came here for college. That's a lie. I never went to college, but it's a college town, and my intentions were to eventually go. That just never happened. Oh, yeah? What's your degree in? Didn't finish. That's why I'm back, I lie. Registering for next semester. This job is perfect for that, we can work around your classes. Be here Monday at 8 for orientation. Do you have a driver's license? I nod. Yeah, I'll bring it. I leave out the fact that I just got my driver's license last month, after months of working to get it reinstated. Thank you. I try to say that with as little eagerness in my voice as possible, but so far things are working out. I have an apartment and now a job. Now I just need to find my daughter. I turn to walk away, but Amy says, wait. Do you want to know how much you're making? Oh. Yeah, of course. Minimum wage. Ridiculous, I know. I don't own this place, or I'd raise it. She leans forward and lowers her voice. You know, you can probably get a job at the Lowe's warehouse. They pay twice that starting out. I tried online last week. They won't hire me with my record. Oh. Bummer. Well. See you Monday, then. Before I go, I tap my fist on the counter and ask a question I probably shouldn't ask. One more thing. You know the guy the first was talking to? Ledger? She raises an amused brow. What about him? Does he have kids? Just a niece or something. She comes in here with him sometimes. Cute girl, but I'm pretty sure he's single and childless. A niece? Or could it be his deceased best friend's daughter? Does he shop here with my daughter? I somehow force a smile through the onslaught of emotions suddenly spiraling through me. I thank her again, but then I leave in a hurry, hoping by some miracle Ledger's truck is still outside and that my daughter is in the truck with him. I look around the parking lot, but he's already gone. My stomach sinks, but I can still feel the adrenaline disguised as hope running through my body. Because now I know he coaches t-ball, and Diem more than likely plays on his team, because why else would he coach if he doesn't have children of his own? I debate going straight to the t-ball field, but I need to do this right. I want to speak with Patrick and Grace first.
Chapter 10. Ledger. I'm in the dugout pulling the equipment out of the bag when Grady slips his fingers through the chain link fence, gripping it. So? Who was she? I pretend not to know what he's talking about. Who was who? The girl you had in your truck last night. Grady's eyes are bloodshot. It looks like the night shift change is taking a toll on him. A customer. I was just giving her a ride home. Grady's wife, Whitney, is standing next to him now. At least the rest of the mom brigade isn't with her, because I can tell immediately by the way she's looking at me that everyone on the t-ball field is already talking. I can only be confronted by one couple at a time. Grady said you had a girl in your truck last night. I shoot Grady a look, and he holds his hands up helplessly, like his wife yanked the information out of him. It was no one, I repeat. Just giving a customer a ride home. I wonder how many times I'm going to have to repeat this today. Who was she? Whitney asks. No one you know. We know everyone around here, Grady says. She's not from here, I say. I might be lying, I might be telling the truth. I wouldn't know since I know very little about her. Other than what she tastes like. Destin has been working on his swing, Grady says, changing the subject to his son. Wait till you see what he can do. Grady wants to be the envy of all the other fathers. I don't get it. T-ball is supposed to be fun, but people like him put so much competitiveness into it and ruin the sport. 2 weeks ago, Grady almost got into a fight with the umpire. He probably would have hit him if Roman hadn't pushed him off the field. Not sure getting that heated over a T-ball game is a good look for anyone. But he takes his son's sports very seriously. Me, not so much. Sometimes I wonder if it's because Diem isn't my daughter. If she were, would I get angry over a sport that doesn't even keep score? I don't know that I could love a biological child more than I love Diem, so I doubt I'd be any different when it comes to their sports. Some of the parents assume that since I played professional football I'd be more competitive. I've dealt with competitive coaches my whole life, though. I agreed to coach this team specifically to prevent some competitive asshole from coming in and setting a bad example for Diem. The kids are supposed to be warming up, but Diem is standing behind home plate shoving T-balls into the pockets of her baseball pants. She's got 2 in each pocket, and now she's trying to shove a third in. Her pants are starting to sag from the weight. I walk over to her and kneel. D, you can't take all the T-balls. They're dragon eggs, she says. I'm going to plant them in my yard and grow baby dragons. I toss the balls one at a time to Roman. That's not how dragons grow. The mama dragon has to sit on the eggs. You don't bury them in the yard. Diem bends forward to pick up a pebble, and I notice she has 2 balls stuffed down the back of her shirt. I untuck her shirt, and the balls fall to her feet. I kick them to Roman. Did I grow in an egg? She asks. No, D, you're a human. Humans don't grow in eggs, we grow in ... quote. I stopped talking because I was about to say, we grow in our mothers' bellies, but I'm always careful to avoid any talk of mothers or fathers around Diem. I don't want her to start asking me questions I can't answer. What do we grow in? She asks. Trees? Shit. I put my hand on Diem's shoulder and completely ignore her question because I have no idea what Grace or Patrick has told her about how babies are made. This isn't my wheelhouse. I wasn't prepared for this conversation. I yell for all the kids to go to the dugout, and luckily Diem is distracted by one of her friends and walks away from me. I blow out a breath, relieved the conversation ended where it did. I dropped Roman off at the bar to spare him a trip to McDonald's. And yes, we're at McDonald's even though Diem didn't wear her cleats at all during the game, because she gets her way with me more often than she doesn't. Choose your battles, they say. But what happens when you never choose any? I don't want to play T-ball anymore, Diem says out of the blue. She's dipping her French fry into honey when she makes that decision. The honey dribbles down her hand. I try to get her to eat her fries with ketchup because it's a lot easier to clean, but she wouldn't be Diem if she didn't do everything the hardest way possible. You don't like T-ball anymore? She shakes her head and licks her wrist. That's fine. But we only have a few more games, and you made a commitment. What's a commitment? It's when you agree to do something. You agreed to be a part of the team. If you quit in the middle of the season, your friends will be sad. You think you can make it through the rest of the season? If we can have McDonald's after all the games. I narrow my eyes in her direction. Why do I feel like I'm getting swindled? What does swindled mean? she asks. It means you're trying to trick me into getting you McDonald's. DM grins and eats her last fry. I put all our trash on the tray. I grab her hand to lead her out of the store and remember the honey. Her hands are as sticky as a flytrap. I keep wet wipes in my truck for this very reason. A couple of minutes later, she's buckled up in her booster seat and I'm scrubbing her hands and arms with the wet wipe when she says, "When is my mom getting a bigger car?" She drives a minivan. How big of a car does she need? Not Nana, DM says. My mom. Skylar said my mom never comes to my T-ball games, and I told her she will when she gets a bigger car. I stop wiping her hands. She never brings up her mother. This is twice in one day we've brushed the conversation. I guess she's getting to that age, but I have no idea what Grace or Patrick has told her about Kenna, and I have absolutely no idea why she's asking about her mother's car. Who told you your mom needed a bigger car? Nana. She said my mom's car isn't big enough and that's why I live with her and no. That's confusing. I shake my head and throw the wipes in a sack. I don't know. Ask your Nana. I close her door and text Grace as I'm circling around to the driver's side of my truck. Why does DM think her mother isn't in her life because she needs a bigger car? We're a few miles away from McDonald's when Grace calls. I make sure not to answer it on speaker. Hey. DM and I are on our way back. It's my way of letting Grace know I can't say much on my end. Grace sucks in a breath like she's getting ready for a long explanation to my text. Okay, so last week, DM asked me why she doesn't live with her mother. I didn't know what to say, so I told her she lives with me because her mother's car isn't big enough to fit all of us. It was the first lie I could come up with. I panicked, Ledger. I'd say so. We plan on telling her, but how do you tell a child her mother went to prison? She doesn't even know what prison is. I'm not judging, I say. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We should probably come up with a more accurate version of the truth, though. I know. She's just so young. She's starting to get curious. I know. Just, if she asks again, tell her I'll explain it to her. I did. Prepare for questions. Great, she says with a sigh. How did the game go? Good. She wore the red boots. And got McDonald's. Grace laughs. You're a sucker. Yeah. Tell me something new. See you soon. I end the call and glance into the back seat. DM's face is full of concentration. What are you thinking, D? I want to be in a movie, DM says. Oh yeah? You want to be an actress? No, I want to be in a movie. I know. That's called being an actress. Then, yeah, that's what I want to be. An actress. I want to be in cartoons. I don't tell her cartoons are just voices and drawings. I think you'd be a great cartoon actress. I will be. I'm gonna be a horse or a dragon or a mermaid. Or a unicorn, I suggest. She grins and looks out her window. I love her imagination, but she definitely didn't get it from Scotty. His mind was more concrete than a sidewalk.
Chapter 11. Kenna. I've never seen a picture of DM. I don't know if she looks like me or Scotty. Are her eyes blue or brown? Is her smile honest like her father's? Does she laugh like me? Is she happy? That's my only hope for her. I want her to be happy. I have complete faith in Grace and Patrick. I know they loved Scotty, and it's obvious they love Diem. They loved her before she was even born. They started fighting for custody the day they were told I was pregnant. The baby didn't even have fully developed lungs, but they were already fighting for its first breath. I lost the custody battle before Diem was even born. There aren't many rights a mother has when she's sentenced to several years in prison. The judge said, because of the nature of our situation and the duress I'd caused to Scotty's family, he could not, in good conscience, honor my request for visitation rights. Nor would he force Scotty's parents to maintain the relationship between my daughter and me while I was in prison. I was told I could petition the court for rights upon my release, but since my rights were terminated, there's probably very little I can do. Between Diem's birth and my release almost 5 years later, there has been little anyone could, or would, do for me. All I have is this intangible hope I try to cling to with childlike hands. I was praying Scotty's parents just needed time. I assumed, ignorantly, that they would eventually see a need for me to be in Diem's life. There wasn't much I could do from my isolated position in the world, but now that I'm out, I've thought long and hard about how I should go about this. I have no idea what to expect. I don't even know what kind of people they are. I only met them once when Scotty and I were dating, and that didn't go over very well. I've tried to find them online, but their profiles are extremely private. There wasn't a single picture of Diem online that I could locate. I even looked up all of Scotty's friends whose names I could remember, but I couldn't remember very many, and all their profiles were private. I knew very little about Scotty's life before he met me, and I wasn't with him long enough to truly get to know his friends or his family. 6 months out of the 22 years he lived. Why is everyone from his life so locked down? Is it because of me? Are they afraid of this very thing happening? Me showing up? Me hoping to be a part of my daughter's life? I know they hate me, and they have every right to hate me, but part of me has been living with them for the past 4 years in Diem. My hope is that they've found a sliver of forgiveness for me through my daughter. Time heals all wounds, right? Except I didn't leave them with a simple wound. I left them with a casualty. One so heartbreaking there's a possibility it will never be forgiven. It's hard not to cling to hope, though, when all I've been able to do or look forward to is this moment. It's either going to complete me or destroy me. There is no in between. 4 more minutes before I find out. I'm more nervous in this moment than I was in the courtroom 5 years ago. I grip the rubber starfish tightly in my hand. It's the only toy they had for sale at the gas station next door to my apartment. I could have had the cab driver take me to Target or Walmart, but they're both in the opposite direction of where I'm hoping Diem still lives, and I can't afford that much cab fare. After I got hired at the grocery store today, I walked home and took a nap. I didn't want to show up while Diem wasn't at Grace and Patrick's, and if Amy is right and Ledger doesn't have kids, it's a reasonable assumption that the little girl he coaches in T-ball is my daughter. And judging by the amount of Gatorade he bought, he was preparing for a long day with a lot of teams, which, using deductive reasoning, would mean it would be hours before Diem was back home. I waited as long as I could. I know the bar opens at 5, which means Ledger will likely be taking Diem home before then, and I really don't want Ledger to be there when I arrive, so I timed my cab ride to get me there at 5:15. I didn't want to arrive later than that because I don't want to show up when they're having dinner, or after she's gone to bed. I want to do everything right. I don't want to do anything that will make Patrick or Grace feel more threatened by my presence than they probably already will be. I don't want them to ask me to leave before I can even plead my case. In a perfect world, they'll open their front door for me and allow me to reunite with the daughter I've never held. In a perfect world, their son would still be alive. I wonder what I'll see in their eyes when they find me at their front door. Will it be shock? Hatred? How much does Grace despise me? I try to put myself in Grace's shoes sometimes. I try to imagine the hatred she holds for me, what it must feel like from her perspective. Sometimes I lie in bed and close my eyes and try to justify all the reasons this woman is keeping me from knowing my daughter so that I don't hate her back. I think, Kenna, imagine you're Grace. Imagine you have a son. A beautiful young man that you love more than life, more than any afterlife. And he's handsome, and he's accomplished. But most importantly, he's kind. Everyone tells you this. Other parents wish their children could be more like your son. You smile because you're proud of him. You're so proud of him, even when he brings home his new girlfriend, the one you heard moaning too loud in the middle of the night. The girlfriend you saw looking around the room while everyone else was praying over dinner. The girlfriend you caught smoking at 11 at night on your back patio, but you didn't say anything, you just hoped your perfect son would outgrow her soon. Imagine you get a phone call from your son's roommate, asking if you know where he is. He was supposed to show up for work early that day, but for whatever reason he didn't show. Imagine your worry, because your son shows. He always shows. Imagine he doesn't answer his cell phone when you call to see why he didn't show. Imagine you start to panic as the hours stretch on. Normally, you can feel him, but you can't feel him today, you feel full of fear and empty of pride. Imagine you start to make phone calls. You call his college, you call his employer, you'd even call the girlfriend you don't much care for, if only you knew her number. Imagine you hear a car door slam, and you breathe a sigh of relief, only to fall to the floor when you see the police at your door. Imagine hearing things like, "I'm sorry," and "accident," and "car wreck," and "didn't make it." Imagine yourself not dying in that moment. Imagine being forced to go on, to live through that awful night, to wake up the next day, to be asked to identify his body. His lifeless body. A body you created, breathed life into, grew inside of you, taught to walk and talk and run and be kind to others. Imagine touching his cold, cold face, your tears falling onto the plastic bag he's tucked into, your screams stuck in your throat, silent like the screams you've had in nightmares. And yet you still live. Somehow. Somehow you go on without the life you made. You grieve. You're too weak to even plan his funeral. You keep wondering why your perfect son, your kind son, would be so reckless. You are so devastated, but your heart keeps beating, over and over, reminding you of all the heartbeats your son will never feel. Imagine it gets even worse. Imagine that. Imagine when you think you're at rock bottom, you're introduced to a whole new cliff you get to fall off when you're told your son wasn't even driving the car that was going way too fast on the gravel. Imagine being told the wreck was her fault. The girl who smoked the cigarette and didn't close her eyes during dinner prayer and moaned too loud in your quiet house. Imagine being told she was careless and so unkind with the life you grew. Imagine being told she left him there. Fled, they said. Imagine being told they found her the next day, in her bed, hungover, covered in mud and gravel and your kind son's blood. Imagine being told your perfect son had a perfect pulse and might have lived a perfect life if only he could have had that wreck with a perfect girl. Imagine finding out it didn't have to be this way. He wasn't even dead. 6 hours they estimated he had lived. Several feet he had crawled, searching for you. Needing your help. Bleeding. Dying. For hours. Imagine finding out that the girl who moaned too loud and smoked the cigarette on your patio at 11 o'clock at night could have saved him. One phone call she didn't make. 3 numbers she never dialed. 5 years she served for his life, like you didn't raise him for 18, watch him flourish on his own for 4, and maybe could have gotten 50 more years with him had she not cut them short. Imagine having to go on after that. Now imagine that girl, the one you hoped your son would grow out of. Imagine after all the pain she's caused you, she decides to show back up in your life. Imagine she has the nerve to knock on your door. Imagine she smiles in your face. Asks about her daughter. Expects to be a part of the tiny little beautiful life your son miraculously left behind. Just imagine it. Imagine having to look into the eyes of the girl who left your son to crawl several feet during his death while she took a nap in her bed. Imagine what you would say to her after all this time. Imagine all the ways you could hurt her back. It's easy to see why Grace hates me. The closer I get to their house, the more I'm starting to hate me too. I'm not even sure why I'm here without being more prepared. This isn't going to be easy, and even though I've been preparing myself for this moment every day for 5 years, I've never actually rehearsed it. The cab driver turns the car onto Scotty's old street. I feel like I'm sinking into the backseat with a heaviness unlike anything I've ever experienced before. When I see their house, my fear becomes audible. I make a noise in the back of my throat that surprises me, but it's taking all the effort inside me to keep my tears at bay. Diem could be inside that house right now. I'm about to cross a yard that Diem has played in. I'm about to knock on a door that Diem has opened. $12 even, the driver says. I fish $15 out of my pocket and tell him to keep the change. I feel like I float out of the car. It's such a weird feeling. I glance into the back seat to make sure I'm not still sitting there. I contemplate asking the driver to wait, but that would be prematurely admitting defeat. I'll figure out how to get home later. Right now, I cling to the impossible dream that it'll be hours before I'm asked to leave. The driver pulls away as soon as I close the door, and I'm left standing on the opposite side of the street from their house. The sun is still hanging bright in the western sky. I wish I'd have waited until dark. I feel like an open target. Vulnerable to whatever is about to come at me. I want to hide. I need more time. I haven't even practiced what I'm going to say yet. I've thought about it constantly, but I've never practiced out loud. My breaths become harder and harder to control. I put my hands on the back of my head and breathe in and out, in and out. Their living room curtains aren't open, so I don't feel like my presence is known yet. I sit down on the curb and take a moment to gather myself before walking over there. I feel like my thoughts are scattered at my feet and I need to pick them up one at a time and place them in order. Apologize. Express my gratitude. Beg for their mercy. I should have dressed better. I'm in jeans and the same Mountain Dew t-shirt I had on yesterday. It was the cleanest outfit I had, but now that I'm looking down at myself, I want to cry. I don't want to meet my daughter for the first time while wearing a Mountain Dew t-shirt. How are Patrick and Grace expected to take me seriously when I'm not even dressed seriously? I shouldn't have rushed over here. I should have given this more thought. I'm starting to panic. I wish I had a friend. Nicole? I turn toward the sound of his voice. I crane my neck until my eyes meet Ledger's. Under normal circumstances, seeing him here would shock me, but I'm already at max capacity for things to feel, so my thought process is more along the lines of an apathetic, great. Of course. There's a sharp intensity in the way he's looking at me that sends a chill up my arms. What are you doing here? He asks. Fuck. 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 Nothing. Fuck. My eyes flicker across the street. Then I look behind Ledger, at what I'm assuming is his house. I remember Scotty saying Ledger grew up across the street from him. What are the odds that he would still live here? I have no idea what to do. I stand up. My feet feel like weights. I look at Ledger, but he's no longer looking at me. He's looking across the street at Scotty's old house. He runs a hand across his jaw, and there's a fresh, disturbing look on his face. He says, "Why were you staring at that house?" He's looking at the ground, then across the street, then toward the sun, but then his eyes land on me after I've failed to answer his question, and he's a completely different person than the man I saw at the grocery store today. He's no longer the fluid guy who moves around the bar like he's on rollerblades. "Your name isn't Nicole." He says it like it's a depressing realization. I wince. He's put it all together. Now he looks like he wants to rip it all apart. He points at his house. "Go." The word is sharp and demanding. I take a step into the street, away from him. I feel myself begin to tremble, just as he steps into the street and closes the gap between us. His eyes are on the house across the street again as he reaches his arm around me, pressing a firm hand into my lower back. He begins pushing me along with him as he points toward the house opposite where my daughter lives. "Get inside before they see you." I expected he'd eventually put the pieces together. I just wish he would have made the connection last night. Not right now, when I'm only 15 feet away from her. I look at his house, then look at Patrick and Grace's house. I have no method of escaping him. The last thing I want to do right now is cause a scene. My goal was to arrive peacefully and make this go as smoothly as possible. Ledger seems to want the opposite. "Please leave me alone," I say through clenched teeth. "This is none of your business." "The fuck it isn't," he hisses. "Ledger, please." My voice shakes from both fear and tears. I'm scared of him, scared of this moment, scared of the idea that this is going to be so much more difficult than I feared. Why else would he be pushing me away from their property? I look back at Patrick and Grace's house, but my feet keep moving toward Ledger's house. I would put up a fight, but at this point, I'm no longer sure I'm ready to face the Landrys. I thought I was ready when I got into the cab earlier, but now that I'm here and Ledger is mad, I'm absolutely not ready to face them. It's obvious from the last few minutes that my arrival might have been somewhat anticipated and is not at all welcomed. They were likely notified when I was released into transitional housing. They had to be expecting this to happen eventually. My feet are no longer weights. I feel like I'm floating again, high in the air like a balloon, and I'm following Ledger as if he's pulling me along by a string. I feel embarrassed to be here. Embarrassed enough to follow behind Ledger like I have no voice or thoughts of my own. I certainly don't have any confidence in this second. And my shirt is too stupid for a moment of this magnitude. I'm stupid for thinking this was the way to go about it. Ledger closes his door once we're inside his living room. He looks disgusted. I don't know if it's at the sight of me, or if he's thinking about last night. He's pacing the living room, one palm pressed against his forehead. "Is that why you showed up at my bar? You were trying to trick me into leading you to her?" "No." My voice is pathetic. He slides his hands down his face in frustration. He pauses and then just mutters, "God damn it." He is so mad at me. Why do I always make the worst decisions? You've been in town for one day. He swipes keys off a table. You really thought this was a good idea? Showing up this soon? This soon? She's 4 years old. I clench an arm over my churning stomach. I don't know what to do. What do I do? What can I do? There has to be something. Some kind of compromise. They can't just collectively decide what's best for Diem without consulting me. Can they? They can. I'm the unreasonable one in this scenario. I've just been too scared to admit it. I want to ask him if there's anything I can do to get them to hear me out, but the way he's glaring at me makes me feel completely in the wrong. I begin to wonder if I'm even in a position to ask questions. His focus falls to the rubber starfish in my hand. He walks over to me and holds out his hand. I place the starfish in his palm. I don't know why I hand it over. Maybe if he sees I showed up with a toy, he'll know I'm here with good intentions. Really? A teething ring? He tosses it on his couch like it's the stupidest thing he's ever seen. She's 4. He walks toward his kitchen. I'm taking you home. Wait until I pull my truck into the garage. I don't want them to see you. I no longer feel like I'm floating. I feel heavy and frozen, like my feet are trapped in the concrete slab of his house. I glance out the living room window toward Patrick and Grace's house. I'm so close. All that separates us is a street. An empty street with no traffic. It's clear to me what's going to happen next. Patrick and Grace want nothing to do with me, to the point Ledger knew to intercept my arrival. This means there won't be any negotiating. The forgiveness I was hoping had found its way to them never made it here. They still hate me. Apparently, so does everyone else in their lives. The only way I'm going to be able to see my daughter is if, by some miracle, I can take it through the court system, and that's going to take money I don't yet have and years I can't bear the thought of passing by. I've already missed so much. If I want to see Diem at all, ever, this is my only chance. If I want the opportunity to beg Scotty's parents for forgiveness, it's now or never. Now or never. Ledger probably won't notice I'm not following him to his garage for another 10 seconds, at least. I might make it before he catches up to me. I slip outside and run as fast as I can across the street. I'm in their yard. My feet are sprinting across grass Diem has played on. I'm beating on their front door. I'm ringing their doorbell. I'm trying to look through the window to get a glimpse of her. Please, I whisper, knocking harder. My whisper turns into panic as I hear Ledger approaching me from behind. I'm sorry. I yell, beating on the door. My voice is a fearful plea now. I'm sorry, please let me see her. I'm being pulled, and then carried, back to the house across the street. Even through my struggle to get out of his arms, I'm staring at that front door as it gets smaller and smaller, hoping for even a half-second glimpse of my little girl. I don't see any movement at all in their house before I'm no longer outside. I'm back inside Ledger's house, being dropped onto his couch. He's holding his phone, pacing his living room as he dials a phone number. It's only 3 digits. He's calling the police. I panic. No. Plead. No, no, no. I lunge across his living room in an attempt to grab at his phone, but he just puts a hand on my shoulder and steers me back to the couch. I sit down and bury my elbows into my knees, bringing my fingers to a shaky point against my mouth. Please don't call the police. Please. I sit still, wanting to appear unthreatening, hoping he just looks me in the eye long enough to feel my pain. His eyes meet mine just as tears begin to fall down my cheeks. He pauses before completing the call. He stares me down, studying me, searching my face for a promise. I won't come back. If he calls the police, this will not look good for me. I can't have anything added to my record, even though I've broken no laws that I know of. But just being here unwanted is enough of a mark against me. He takes a step closer. You cannot come back here. Swear to me we'll never see you again, or I'll call the police right now. I can't promise him that. What else is there in my life other than my daughter? She's all I have. She's why I'm still alive. This can't be happening. Please, I cry, not knowing what I'm even begging for. I just want someone to listen to me. To hear me out. To understand how much I'm suffering. I want him to be the man I met in the bar last night. I want him to pull me to his chest, to make me feel like I have an ally. I want him to tell me it's going to be okay, even though I know with everything in me that it will never, ever be okay. The next several minutes are a defeated blur. I'm a mess of emotions. I get into Ledger's truck, and he drives me away from the neighborhood my daughter has been raised in her whole life. I'm finally in the same town as her after all these years, but I've never felt farther away from her than I do in this moment. I press my forehead to the passenger window and I close my eyes, wishing I could start over from the beginning. The very beginning. Or at least fast forward to the end.
Chapter 12. Ledger. It's typical for people to be praised in death. Heralded to the point of heroism sometimes. But nothing anyone said about Scotty was embellished for the sake of remembering him fondly. He was everything everyone said about him. Nice, funny, athletic, honest, charismatic, a good son. A great friend. Not a day goes by that I don't wish I could have traded places with him, in life and in death. I'd give up the life I've been living in an instant if it meant he could have just one day with Diem. I don't know that I'd be this angry, this protective over Diem, if Kenna had just simply caused the accident. But she did so much more than that. She was driving when she shouldn't have been, she was speeding, she was drinking, she flipped the car. And then she left. She left Scotty there to die, and she walked home and crawled into bed because she thought she could get away with it. He's dead because she was scared she'd get in trouble. And now she wants forgiveness? I can't think about the details of Scotty's death right now. Not with her sitting next to me in this truck, because I'd rather be dead than allow her the satisfaction of knowing Diem. If it means driving us both off a bridge, I might just be vengeful enough to do that right now. The fact that she thought it would be okay to show up is baffling to me. I'm pissed she's here, but I think my anger is amplified by the knowledge that she knew who I was last night.
When we kissed, when I held her.
I shouldn't have ignored my gut. There was something off about her. She doesn't look like the Kenna I saw in the articles 5 years ago. Scotty's Kenna had long blonde hair. But I never really looked at her face back then.
I never met her in person, but I feel like even just seeing a mug shot of the girl who killed my best friend should have stuck in my head more.
I feel stupid. I'm angry, I'm hurt, I feel taken advantage of.
Even today in the store, she knew who I was, yet gave me no hint as to who she was.
I crack my window to get some fresh air, hoping it'll calm me down. My knuckles are white as I grip the steering wheel. She's staring out the window, unresponsive. She may be crying. I don't know. I don't fucking care. I don't. She isn't the girl I met last night. That girl doesn't exist. She was pretending with me, and I fell right into her trap.
Patrick expressed concern several months ago when we found out she was released.
He thought this might happen, that she might show up wanting to meet Diem. I even put in a Ring camera on my house that points at their front yard. It's how I knew someone was sitting on the curb. I told Patrick he was silly to worry. She wouldn't show up. Not after what she did. I gripped the steering wheel even tighter. Kenna might have brought Diem into the world, but that's where her claim to Diem ends. When her apartments come into view, I pull the truck into a spot and put it in park. I don't kill the engine, but Kenna doesn't make a move to exit my truck. I figured she'd jump out before I even came to a complete stop like she did last night, but it looks like there's something she wants to say. Or maybe she just dreads going into that apartment as much as she probably dreads staying in this truck. She's staring at her hands folded together in her lap. She brings her hand to the seatbelt and releases it, but when she's free from it, she remains in the same position. Diem looks like her. I always assumed she did since I didn't see much of Scotty and Diem's features, but until tonight I had no idea just how much she resembles her mother. They have the same reddish shade of brown hair, straight and flat, not a wave or a curl in sight. She has Kenna's eyes. Maybe that's why I saw red flags last night. My subconscious recognized her before I could. When Kenna's eyes slide over to mine, I feel a tug of disappointment inside of me. Diem looks so much like her when she's sad. It's like I'm looking into the future at who Diem is going to someday be. I don't like that the one person I dislike the most in this world reminds me of the person I love the most. Kenna wipes her eyes, but I don't lean over and open the glove box to retrieve a napkin. She can use the Mountain Dew shirt she's been wearing for 2 days. I didn't know you before I showed up at your bar last night, she says with a trembling voice. I swear. Her head falls back against the headrest, and she stares straight ahead. Her chest rises with a deep inhale. She exhales at the exact moment my finger meets the unlock button. My cue for her to exit. I don't care about last night. I care about Diem. That's it. I watch a tear as it skates down her jaw. I hate that I know what those tears taste like. I hate that part of me wants to reach over and wipe it away. I wonder if she cried as she was walking away from Scotty that night. She moves with a graceful sadness, leaning forward, pressing her face into her hands.
Her movement fills my truck with the scent of her shampoo.
It smells like fruit. Apples.
I rest my elbow on my doorframe and lean away from her, covering my mouth and my nose with my hand.
I look out my window, not wanting to know anything else about her.
I don't want to know what she smells like, what she sounds like, what her tears look like, what her pain makes me feel like. They don't want you in her life, Kenna. A cry mixes with a gasp that sounds like it's filled with years of heartache when she says, "She's my daughter."
Her voice decides to reconnect with her spirit in this moment. It's no longer a wisp of air escaping her mouth. It's full of panic and desperation. I grip my steering wheel, tapping it with my thumb while I think of how to say what I need for her to understand.
Diem is their daughter.
Your rights were terminated. Get out of my truck, and then do us all a favor and go back to Denver. I don't know if the sob that escapes her is even real. She wipes her cheeks and then opens the door and steps out of my truck. She faces me before closing the door, and she looks so much like Diem, even her eyes have grown a shade lighter like Diem's do when she cries. I feel that look deep within me, but I know it's only because of how closely she resembles Diem. I'm hurting for Diem. Not for this woman. Kenna looks torn between walking away, responding to me, or screaming. She hugs herself and looks at me with two huge, devastated eyes. She tilts her face up toward the sky for a second, inhaling a shaky breath. Fuck you, Ledger.
The sting of agony in her voice makes me flinch internally, but I remain as stoic as possible on the outside.
Her words weren't even a yell. They were just a quiet and piercing statement. She slams my truck door, and then slaps my window with both of her palms. Fuck you. I don't wait for her to say it a third time. I throw the truck in reverse and pull back onto the street. My stomach is in a knot that feels tethered to her fist. The farther I get from her, the more I feel it unravel. I don't know what I expected. I've had this vision of her in my head all these years. A girl with no remorse for what she's done. A mother with no attachment to the child she brought into the world. 5 years of preconceived yet solid notions aren't easy to let go of. Kenna has been one way and one way only in my mind. Unremorseful. Uninvolved. Uncaring. Unworthy. I can't reconcile the emotional turmoil she seems to suffer from not being part of Diem's life with the lack of regard she held for Scotty's life. I drive away while thinking of a million things I should have said. A million questions I still don't have answers to. Why didn't you call for help? Why did you leave him there? Why do you think you deserve to cause another upheaval in the lives you've already destroyed? Why do I still want to hug you?
Chapter 13. Kenna. I feel like I'm living my worst case scenario. Not only did I not get to meet my daughter today, but the only person who might have been able to lead me to her is now enemy number 1. I hate him. I hate that I let him touch me last night. I hate that in the brief time I spent with him yesterday, I gave him all the ammunition to label me a liar, a whore, an alcoholic. As if murderer wasn't enough. He's going to go straight to Grace and Patrick and reinforce their hatred for me. He's going to help them build an even sturdier, taller, thicker wall between me and my daughter. I have no one on my side. Not a single person. Hi. I pause halfway up the stairwell. There's a teenage girl sitting at the top of the stairs. She has Down syndrome, and she's smiling at me adorably, like this isn't the worst day of my life. She's wearing the same type of work shirt that Amy had on at the grocery store. She must work there. Amy said they give grocery bagger positions to people with special needs. I wipe tears from my cheeks and mutter, "Hi," and then sidestep around her. I would normally make more of an effort to be neighborly, especially if I'm going to be working with this girl, but I have more tears in my throat than words. I open my apartment door, and once I'm inside, I slam it shut and fall face down onto my half-deflated mattress. I can't even say I'm back to square one. I feel like I'm at square -1 now. My door swings open, and I immediately sit up. The girl from the stairs walks into my apartment uninvited. "Why are you crying?" She closes the door behind her and leans against it, scanning my apartment with curious eyes. Why don't you have any stuff? Even though she just barged in without permission, I'm too sad to be upset about it. She doesn't have boundaries. Good to know. I just moved in, I say, explaining my lack of stuff. The girl walks to my refrigerator and opens it. She sees the half-eaten package of Lunchables I left this morning, and she grabs it. Can I have this? At least she waits for permission before she eats it. Sure. She takes a bite out of a cracker, but then her eyes get wide and she tosses the Lunchables on the counter. Oh, you have a kitten. She walks over to the kitten and picks her up. My mom won't let me have a kitten. Did you get it from Ruth? Any other time, I'd welcome her. Really? But I just don't have the strength to be friendly during one of the worst moments of my life. I need to have a decent breakdown, and I can't do that with her here. Can you please go? I say it as nicely as possible, but asking someone to leave you alone can never not sting. One time when I was like 5, I'm 17 now, but when I was 5, I had a kitten, but it got worms and died. I'm sorry. She still hasn't closed the refrigerator. What's her name? I haven't named her yet. Did she not hear me ask her to leave? Why are you so poor? What makes you think I'm poor? You don't have any food or a bed or stuff. I've been in prison. Maybe that'll scare her off. My dad is in prison. Do you know him? No. But I haven't even told you his name. I was in an all-female prison. Abel Darby. That's his name. Do you know him? No. Why are you crying? I get off the mattress and walk to the refrigerator and shut it. Did someone hurt you? Why are you crying? I can't believe I'm going to answer her. I feel like this makes me even more pathetic, to just vent to a random teenager who walked into my apartment without my permission. But it seems like it would feel good to say it out loud. I have a daughter, and no one will let me see her. Did she get kidnapped? I want to say yes, because sometimes it feels that way. No. My daughter lived with people while I was in prison, but now that I'm out, they don't want me to see her. But you want to? Yes. She kisses the kitten on top of its head. Maybe you should be glad. I don't really like little kids. My brother puts peanut butter in my shoes sometimes. What's your name? Kenna. I'm Lady Diana. Is that really your name? No, it's Lucy, but I like Lady Diana better. Do you work at the grocery store? I ask her, pointing at her shirt. She nods. I start work there on Monday. I've worked there for almost 2 years. I'm saving to buy a computer, but I haven't saved anything yet. I'm gonna go eat dinner now. She hands me the kitten and starts walking toward my door. I have some sparklers. When it gets dark later, do you want to light them with me? I lean against my counter and sigh. I don't want to say no, but I also have a feeling my breakdown is going to last at least until morning. Maybe another time. Lady Diana leaves my apartment. I lock the door this time, and then I immediately grab my notebook and write a letter to Scotty because it's the only thing that can prevent me from crumbling. Dear Scotty, I wish I could tell you what our daughter looks like, but I still have no idea. Maybe it's my fault for not being honest with Ledger about who I was last night. He seemed to take that as some type of betrayal when he realized who I was today. I didn't even get to see your parents because he was so angry I was there. I just wanted to see our daughter, Scotty. I just wanted to look at her. I'm not here to take her from them, but I don't think Ledger or your parents have any idea what it's like to carry a human inside of you for months, only to have that tiny little human ripped away from you before you even get to meet them. Did you know that when an incarcerated woman gives birth, if they're almost finished with their sentence, they sometimes get to keep their babies with them? This mostly happens in jails, where the sentences are shorter. It sometimes happens in prisons, but it's rare. In my case, I was just beginning my sentence when I gave birth to Diem, which made it to where she wasn't allowed to stay with me in the prison. She was a preemie, and as soon as she was born, they noticed her breathing wasn't where they wanted it to be, so they immediately whisked her away and transferred her to the NICU. They gave me an aspirin, some oversized pads, and eventually took me back to the facility with empty arms and an empty womb. Depending on the circumstances, some mothers are allowed to pump, and their breast milk is stored and delivered to their baby. I wasn't one of the lucky ones. I wasn't allowed to pump, and I wasn't allowed anything that would help my milk dry up. 5 days after Diem was born, I was in the prison library, crying in a corner because my milk had come in, my clothes were soaking wet, and I was still emotionally devastated and physically spent. That's when I met Ivy. She had been there for a while, knew all the guards well, all the rules, how far she could bend them and who would let her. She saw me crying while holding a book about postpartum depression. Then she saw my soaking wet shirt, so she took me to a bathroom and helped me clean up. She meticulously folded up paper towels into squares and handed them to me one by one while I layered them inside my bra. "Boy or girl?" she asked. "Girl." "What did you name her?" "Diem." "That's a good name. A strong name. She healthy?" "She was a preemie, so they took her as soon as she was born. But a nurse said she was doing well." Ivy winced when I said that. "They gonna let you see her?" "No. I don't think so." Ivy shook her head, and I didn't know it then, but Ivy had a way of communicating entire conversations through all the different ways she shook her head. I'd slowly learned them over the years, but that day, I didn't know the way she shook her head translated to, "Those bastards." She helped me dry my shirt, and when we got back to the library, she sat me back down and said, "Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna read every book in this library. Pretty soon you'll start to live in the lavish worlds inside these books, rather than the bleak world inside this prison." I was never a big reader. I didn't like her plan. I nodded, but she could tell I wasn't listening to her. She pulled a book off the shelf and handed it to me. "They took your baby from you. You won't ever get over that. So, you decide right now, right here. Are you gonna live in your sadness or are you gonna die in it?" That question punched me in my stomach, the stomach that no longer contained my daughter. Ivy wasn't giving me a pep talk. In a lot of ways, it was the opposite. She wasn't saying I would move past what I was feeling, or that things would get easier. She was telling me this was it, the misery I felt was my new normal. I could either learn to live with it or I could let it consume me. I swallowed and said, "I'm gonna live in it." Ivy smiled and squeezed my arm. "There you go, Mama." Ivy didn't know it, but she saved me that day with her brutal honesty. She was right. My normal would never be the same. It hadn't been the same since I lost you, and losing our daughter to your parents just pushed me even further from center. The way I felt when they took her from me back then is the exact same defeated misery I feel right now. Ledger has no idea how much his actions tonight have broken the last few pieces of me. Ivy has no idea how much her words from almost 5 years ago are still somehow saving me. Maybe that's what I'll name the kitten. Ivy. Love. Kenna.
Chapter 14. Ledger. I've received 3 calls from Patrick on my drive back to the house, but I haven't answered any of them because I'm too angry at Kenna to have a conversation about her over the phone. I was hoping the Landrys didn't hear her beating on their door, but it's obvious they did. Patrick is waiting in my yard when I pull back into my driveway. He's talking before I even get out of the truck. "What does she want?" he asks. "Grace is a mess. Do you think she's going to try to fight the termination?" The lawyer said it would be impossible. He's still spitting questions at me as he follows me into the kitchen. I toss my keys on the table. "I don't know, Patrick. Should we get a restraining order?" "I don't think you have grounds to do that. She hasn't threatened anyone." He paces the kitchen, and I watch as he seems to grow smaller and smaller. I pour him a glass of water and hand it to him. He downs the whole thing and then takes a seat on one of the bar stools. He drops his head into his hands. The last thing Diem needs is for that woman to be in and out of her life. After what she did to Scotty, we can't. She won't show up here again, I say. She's too afraid of having the cops called on her. My comment only heightens his worry. Why? Is she trying to keep her record clean in case she can take us to court? She lives in a shithole. I doubt she has money to hire an attorney. He stands up. She's living here? I nod. Paradise Apartments. I don't know how long she plans to stay. Shit, he mutters. This is going to destroy Grace. I don't know what to do. I don't have any advice for him. As involved as I am in her life, I'm not Diem's father. I haven't been the one raising her since she was born. This isn't my fight, even though I've somehow immersed myself in the middle of it. I may not have legal say, but I have opinions. Strong ones. As much as the entire situation doesn't have one single positive outcome for all parties involved, the simple truth is that being a part of Diem's life is a privilege, and Kenna lost that privilege the night she decided her freedom was worth more than Scotty's life. Grace isn't strong enough to face Kenna. Patrick may not be strong enough, either, but Patrick has always made sure to at least pretend to be as strong as Grace needs him to be. He'd never act this distraught in front of Grace. He saves this side of himself for the moment Scotty's death gets to be too much. The moments he needs to escape and cry alone in my backyard. Sometimes I can see them both start to unravel. It always happens in February, the month of Scotty's birthday. But then Diem's birthday comes around in May, and it breathes new life back into them. That's what Kenna needs to understand. Grace and Patrick are only alive because of Diem. She's the thread that keeps them from unraveling. There's no room for Kenna in this picture. Some things can be forgiven, but sometimes an action is so painful the memory of it can still crush a person 10 years down the road. Patrick and Grace get by because Diem and I help them forget about what happened to Scotty long enough for them to get through each day. But if Kenna is around, his death will slap them in the face over and over and over again. Patrick's eyes are closed, and his hands are in a point against his chin. It looks like he's saying a silent prayer. I lean forward over the bar and try to keep my voice reassuring. Diem is safe for now. Kenna is too scared to have the cops called on her and too broke to start a custody battle. You've got the advantage. I'm sure after tonight she'll cut her losses and head back to Denver. Patrick stares at the floor for about 10 seconds. I can see the weight of everything he's been through settled squarely on his shoulders.
I hope so, he says.
He heads for the front door, and once he's gone, I close my eyes and exhale. Every reassuring thing I just said to him was a lie. Based on what I know of Kenna now, however little knowledge that may be, I get the feeling this is far from over. You seem distracted, Roman says. He takes a glass from me and starts pouring a beer a customer has had to order from me 3 times already. Maybe you should take a break. You're slowing us down. I'm fine. Roman knows I'm not fine. Every time I look at him, he's watching me, trying to figure out what's going on with me. I tried to work for another hour, but it's Saturday night and it's loud, and even though we have a third bartender on Saturday nights, Roman is right, I'm slowing us down and making it worse, so I eventually go take the damn break. I sit on the steps in the alley, and I look up at the sky and wonder what the hell Scotty would do right now. He was always so level-headed. I don't think he got that from his parents, though. Maybe he did, I don't know. Maybe it's harder for them to think with a level head when they have such broken hearts. The door opens behind me. I look over my shoulder, and Roman is slipping outside. He sits next to me. He doesn't say anything. That's his way of opening the floor for me to speak. Kenna is back. Diem's mother? I nod. Shit. I rub my eyes with my fingers, relieving some of the pressure from the headache that's been building all day. I almost had sex with her last night. In my truck, after the bar closed. He has no immediate reaction to that. I glance over at him, and he's just staring blankly at me. Then he brings a hand to his face and rubs it over his mouth. You what? Roman stands up and walks out into the alley. He's staring at his feet, processing what I've just said. He looks as shocked as I felt when I put 2 and 2 together outside my house. I thought you hated Diem's mother. I didn't know she was Diem's mother last night. How could you not know? She was your best friend's girlfriend, right? I never met her. I saw a picture of her once. And maybe her mugshot, I think. But she had long blonde hair back then, looked completely different. Wow, Roman says. Did she know who you were? I still don't know the answer to that, so I just shrug. She didn't seem surprised to see me outside my house earlier. She just seemed upset. She showed up and tried to meet Diem today. And now, ... I shake my head. I fucked up, Roman. Patrick and Grace don't need this. Does she have any rights as a parent? Her rights were terminated because of the length of her prison sentence. We've just been hoping she wouldn't show up and want to be a part of her life. I mean, they feared it. We all did. I guess we just assumed we'd have some kind of warning. Roman clears his throat. I mean, to be fair, the woman gave birth to Diem. I think that was your warning. Roman likes to play devil's advocate in everything he does. It doesn't surprise me he's doing it now. What's the plan? Are they going to let Diem meet her mother now that they know she wants to be involved? It would be too hard on Patrick and Grace if Kenna were in their lives. Roman makes a face. How's Kenna going to take that? I don't really care how Kenna feels. No grandparent should be forced to have to set up visitation with their son's murderer. Roman raises a brow. Murderer. That's a bit dramatic. Her actions led to Scotty's death, sure. But the girl isn't some cold-blooded murderer. He kicks a pebble across the pavement. I always thought they were a little too harsh on her. Roman didn't know me back when Scotty died. He only knows the story. But if he had been around 5 years ago to see how it affected everyone, and he still somehow managed to say what he just said, I'd have punched him for it. But he's just being Roman. Devil's advocate. Uninformed. What happened when she showed up? What did they say to her? She didn't make it that far. I intercepted her in the street and dropped her off at her apartment. Then I told her to go back to Denver. Roman shoves his hands in his pockets. I watch his face, looking for the judgment. How long ago was this? He asks. It's been a few hours. You aren't worried about her? Who? Diem? He shakes his head with a small laugh, like I'm not following. I'm talking about Kenna. Does she have family here? Friends? Or did you drop her off alone after telling her to fuck off? I stand up and brush the back of my jeans. I know what he's getting at, but it's not my problem. At least that's what I keep telling myself. Maybe you should go check on her, he suggests. I'm not going to check on her. Roman looks disappointed. You're better than this. I can feel my pulse hammering in my throat. I don't know if I'm more pissed at him or at Kenna right now. Roman takes a step closer. She's responsible for the accidental death of someone she was in love with. As if that wasn't hard enough, she went to prison for it and was forced to give up her own child. She finally shows back up hoping to meet her, and you do God knows what with her in your truck, and then you prevent her from meeting her daughter, and then you tell her to fuck off. No wonder you've been slamming shit around all night. He walks back up the steps, but before he goes inside, he turns to me and says, "You're the reason I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere, Ledger. You gave me a chance when everyone else gave up on me. You have no idea how much I look up to you for that. But it's really hard to look up to you right now. You're acting like an asshole." Roman walks back inside the bar. I stare at the door after it closes, and then I hit it. Fuck. I start pacing in the alley. The more I pace, the guiltier I feel. I've been unequivocally on Patrick and Grace's side since the day I found out what happened to Scotty, but the more seconds that pass between Roman's words and my next decision, the more uneasy I feel about it all. There are two possibilities running through my head right now. The first is that Kenna is exactly who I've always believed her to be, and she showed up here selfishly, only thinking of herself and not at all thinking of what her presence would do to Patrick and Grace, or even Diem. The second possibility is that Kenna is a devastated, grieving mother who simply aches for a child she desperately wants to do right by. And if that's the case, I don't know that I'm okay with how I left things tonight. What if Roman is right? What if I ripped away every ounce of hope she had left? If so, where does that leave her? Alone in an apartment with no future to look forward to? Should I be worried? Should I check on her? I pace the alley behind the bar for several more minutes, until I finally ask myself the question that keeps circling back around. What would Scotty do? Scotty always saw the best in people, even in those who I failed to find good in at all. If he were here, I can only imagine how he would be rationalizing all of this. You were too harsh, Ledger. Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, Ledger. You won't be able to live with yourself if she takes her own life, Ledger. Fuck, I mutter. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I don't know Kenna's personality at all. The reaction she had earlier could just be dramatics for all I know. But she could also be in a really dark place, and I can't sleep with that on my conscience. I feel unsettled and frustrated as I get in my truck and head back to her place. Maybe I should feel a sense of relief that I now think Roman was wrong, but I just feel pissed. Kenna isn't holed up inside her apartment. She's outside, looking like she doesn't have a care in this world. She's playing with fucking fireworks. Sparklers. Her and some girl, twirling around in the grass like she's a kid and not a grown-ass adult who, just hours earlier, acted like her world was coming to an end. She didn't see me pull up because her back was to the parking lot, and she hasn't noticed I've been sitting here for several minutes. She lights another sparkler for the girl, who then proceeds to make a mad dash with her sparkler and leave trails of light with her as she disappears around the corner. Once Kenna is alone, she presses her palms to her eyes and tilts her face up to the sky. She stands like that for a few seconds. Then she wipes her eyes with her t-shirt. The girl reappears and Kenna smiles, then the girl disappears, and Kenna lets her face fall back into a frown. She's just turning it on and off and on and off, and I don't like that. I like that she's pretending not to be sad every time that girl comes running back to her. Maybe Roman was right. The girl returns once more and hands her another sparkler. As she's lighting it, Kenna looks up and spots my truck. Her whole body seems to shrivel, but she forces a smile toward the girl and makes a motion for the girl to run around the building. As soon as the girl is gone again, Kenna begins to head in my direction. It's obvious I've been sitting here watching her. I don't even try to hide that. I unlock my door right before she reaches my truck and climbs inside. She slams the door. "Are you here with good news?" I shift in my seat. "No." She opens the door and starts to get out. "Wait, Kenna." She pauses, and then closes the door and remains in my truck. It's so quiet. She smells like gunpowder and matches, and there's a strange current inside this truck that's so palpable I expect the whole damn truck to explode. But it doesn't. Nothing happens. No one speaks. I finally clear my throat. "Are you gonna be okay?" My concern is buried beneath a stone-cold exterior, so I know my question seems forced, as if I don't care what the response might be. Kenna tries to get out of the truck again, but I grab her wrist. Her eyes meet mine. "Are you gonna be okay?" I repeat. She stares hard at me with her swollen, red eyes. "Are you?" She shakes her head, seemingly confused. "Are you here because you're afraid I might kill myself?" I don't like how she seems to want to laugh at my concern. "Am I worried you aren't in a good headspace?" I ask, reframing her question. "Yeah. I am. I wanted to make sure you were okay." Her head tilts slightly to the right as she turns her whole body so that she's facing me in her seat. Her shoulder-length strands of straight hair lean with her. "That's not it," she says. "You're worried if I end my life, you'll be left feeling guilty that you've been so unbearably cruel to me. That's why you came back. You don't care if I actually kill myself, you just don't want to be the impetus for my decision." She shakes her head with a shallow laugh. "You did it. You checked on me. Your conscience is clear now, goodbye." Kenna goes to open her door, and the girl she was lighting sparklers for suddenly appears at her passenger window. Her nose is pressed against the glass. "Roll down this window," Kenna says to me. I turn my key so that I can roll down her window. The girl leans in, smiling at us. "Are you Kenna's dad?" Her question is so out of left field, I can't help but laugh. Kenna laughs too. Diem has Scotty's laugh and smile. Kenna's laugh is her own. One I haven't heard before this second. One I want to hear again. "He's definitely not my dad," Kenna says. She cuts her eyes to mine. "He's the guy the first told you about earlier." The one keeping me from my little girl. Kenna opens her door and hops out. She slams my truck door, and then the teenage girl leans in the passenger window and says, "Jerk." Kenna grabs the girl's hand and pulls her away from the truck. "Come on, Lady Diana. He's not on our side." Kenna walks away with the girl and she doesn't look back, no matter how much I want her to and don't want her to, and fuck, my brain is a pretzel. I'm not sure I could be on her side even if I wanted to be. This whole situation contains so many nooks and crannies and corners. I get the feeling choosing sides is going to be the downfall of all of us.